Hello and welcome back to my 10 favorite people. Hope you're doing well. As I'm sure you're all well aware, we like being prepared for multiple outcomes on this channel, and although it's still not my base case, the likelihood of a left translated cycle for Bitcoin definitely went up this week. In the last video, we said it was likely markets would rally if CPI ended up coming in cooler than the previous reading because it would give markets hope that maybe inflation would start downtrending once again here, and that would allow the Fed to cut rates a little bit sooner than the market had initially anticipated, because we know the main driver of risk asset prices is monetary policy, and as long as the unemployment rate can remain below 4%, cool inflation prints are very bullish in the short term because they give the Fed a little bit more breathing room to ease monetary policy sooner. But that wasn't all that happened this week. We also had some huge announcements, like the state of Wisconsin disclosing they're holding nearly $100 million of BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF for their state pension fund. We also have the state of Oklahoma passing a bill protecting quote-unquote fundamental Bitcoin rights and making it so that people will be able to self-custody their Bitcoin no matter what. And last but certainly not least, for the first time that I can remember, we saw bipartisan support in the Senate in favor of crypto, passing a resolution to overturn anti-crypto regulation that was put in by the SEC. And although this might not impact price immediately, this is very bullish for the entire space in the long term because crypto has become an issue that voters care about. And if you care about getting votes, you can no longer be anti-crypto like the SEC has been for years now. But as always, let's go ahead and start with Bitcoin price action. In the last video, we said these slow bleeds tend to bring in a lot of shorts and normally lead to a short squeeze. And the real moment of truth is whether or not this is going to see continuation next week and go higher, or if we're going to start continuing the chop and rolling over the next few weeks or so. But if this is going to be a left translated cycle, we really want to see a clean weekly close above 69,000 to really get the party going. Coming down and putting in a higher low isn't terrible, but if this is going to be a strong trend, we would just want to see continuation, and there's no reason to come back and put in that higher low before continuing higher, as long as this weekly candle remains the way it looks right now by tomorrow's weekly close. So we'll see how that develops, but if we are going to see a left translated cycle, we want to keep seeing favorable data prints that will allow the markets to price in more and more sooner rate cuts, and cooler inflation prints going forward will definitely help with that. And I'm still seeing a lot of confusion surrounding this. Because markets are forward looking, rate cuts getting closer and giving the markets more to look forward to is bullish. But then when the rate cuts actually occur, markets can only look forward and see the upcoming recession. So rate cuts getting closer and getting priced in, bullish. Rate cuts actually occurring means a recession is coming, and that's what markets have to look forward to. And that's why the actual first rate cut ends up being the start of the end for risk assets, because it means the Fed is likely cutting rates because a recession is around the corner. In other good news in support of a left translated cycle, the S&P 500 is still looking very strong, and it put in a very clean weekly close above the previous high. As long as the S&P 500 is closing weekly candles above 5250, really no reason to be bearish in the short term, in my opinion. If we see a fall back below and a false breakout and a close back below 5250, then we can start talking about this being a fake out and maybe some pain to come in the short term, because we do know that Bitcoin tends to follow the S&P 500. It did bottom about a week or two after the S&P 500 did and started following it upwards, of course, with the catalyst of that cooler CPI print on its side. But we do have S&P 500 election year seasonality on our side. June through the end of the year tends to be very bullish historically. Again, that doesn't mean that's guaranteed to happen this time around, but the odds are definitely in our favor for the S&P 500 to be strong for the rest of the year, and I think that likely helps Bitcoin. And if we do go into a situation where the S&P 500 just rallies for the rest of 2024, I really think the left translated cycle might end up happening, and it will catch a lot of people off guard. And hopefully this first sign of green is the beginning of that. Again, we're going to wait one more week to see if we get continuation or if it just gets sold into. But as of right now, there's definitely a little bit of space to be optimistic. And that's why we stay relatively bullish in terms of portfolio allocation on this channel, because even if we do enter the normal cycle scenario where things end up taking a lot longer to play out, we're still bullish on this asset class in the long term. And yes, we may have to hold through some drawdowns, but I wouldn't want to be too sidelined here and be forced to FOMO in at higher prices. So I prefer to be a little more allocated and hold through the drawdowns than chase rallies because I feel left out and the market takes off without me. As for Bitcoin dominance, pretty interesting price action here. We really want to see it get above 56% if it's going to continue higher here. It is a lower high as of right now. And as long as we're between the 54% region we bounced off of and roughly the 57% high, it's really just consolidation and chop for now. I'm seeing a lot of altcoins bleeding. Obviously, Ethereum had a pretty decent week this week. As of right now, it still looks like it's just retesting resistance and it's too early to start celebrating. It does seem like the market is front running kind of my thesis from the last video that maybe this ETF denial will be a sell the rumor, buy the news event, but it's still too early to know that for sure. But a weekly close for Ethereum back above this resistance level of about 3,100 would start to look very good and would look like a local bottom has likely occurred, especially because sentiment on Ethereum has been so bad over the past few months. But I really want to see the market's reaction to the ETF denial next week, and then we will strategize and position accordingly based on how that ends up going. And Solana still continues to steal the show. I still can't believe how many people hate Solana and think it's some kind of centralized scam coin. I mean, I understand where that comes from. Funny enough, that's exactly how I felt about Ethereum in the last cycle and wasn't as allocated as I should have been to Ethereum when it did absolutely incredibly last cycle. And that's why I ended up positioning in Solana early, because that was a painful lesson I learned the hard way. And I feel like the Bitcoin and Ethereum people are talking about Solana the exact same way this time around and are missing out on a lot of opportunity because of it. Because of course, if we do a direct one-to-one comparison between Solana and Ethereum, yes, Ethereum is definitely more decentralized, the same way that if we compare Ethereum to Bitcoin, Bitcoin is way more decentralized than Ethereum. So you have the Bitcoin maxis hating on the Ethereum people, you have the Ethereum maxis hating on Solana. But the reason why Solana is performing so well this cycle so far is not because of manipulation. It's not because of market makers inflating the price so the FTX estate can sell it, or all of these crazy narratives that people are coming up with. It's because it is where the meme coin nonsense is happening. And if you want to trade meme coins and get in there and buy all of these meme coins being launched every day and that people are making a bunch of money on, like WIF and Bowden and all of these various projects, they have to buy Solana to do so. And because of all that user growth and all of that attention, the Solana price has been going up. And I don't think it's any more complicated than that. But I have a feeling people will hate on it and complain about it for the entirety of the cycle. But of course, because there's more risk in a smaller and newer asset like Solana, it's a smaller position in the portfolio, which makes it a little bit easier to handle the volatility. And even though this has been a very strong bounce so far, and it's bounced a lot harder than Ethereum and Bitcoin did, it still could be a lower high unless we see continuation. Obviously, a lot of that is going to depend on what Bitcoin does, but these are some nice early signs that demand has stepped in at that 140 to 130 region, and we're getting a bounce as of right now. But just like Bitcoin, the moment of truth is whether or not we come down and get a higher low before continuation, or if this just ends up getting sold into and going back to those range lows. But of course, we're going to have to monitor that over the next few weeks or so. But anyway, we'll see what happens as we zoom out. Bitcoin is still in the fair value region, in my opinion. No reason to do anything crazy with the portfolio as of right now. I still think we could see lower prices this summer unless this left translated cycle theory actually plays out. And of course, when in doubt, zoom out. I'm very bullish on this asset class in the long term. I don't think currencies are going to stop getting devalued anytime soon. And I expect risk asset prices, whether it's crypto, real estate, stocks, I expect them to go up in the long term. And there will be a lot of volatility along the way. But as long as we can expand our time horizons, I think we'll be in a pretty good position in the long term. But anyway, let me know what you expect. How likely do you think a left translated cycle is? Or are you still more on the normal cycle or broken cycle side? Would love to know what you guys think. Thank you so much for the support on the recent videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.